As I mentioned earlier, today is the Feast of St. David, or St. David's Day. And I offered St. David's Day greetings in properly butchered Welsh, because St. David is the patron saint of Wales, much as St. Andrew, one of our church's namesakes, is the patron saint of Scotland. Little history lesson. St. David was a Welsh Christian church official who served as the Bishop of Menyw, a city on the southwest tip of Wales that is now today known as St. David's, during the 6th century. St. David was well regarded by his fellow monks for his eloquence at various large church councils, and his most popular miracle was said to have occurred while he was preaching to a large crowd. It is said that while he was speaking from the center of the crowd, the earth rose up and raised him higher on a small hill, and that a dove landed upon his shoulder. Though some have since joked that in the hilly lands of Wales, another hill was perhaps a little excessive, this is one of the ones that's attributed to him. As during that time, historical records are sparse, so nobody is entirely sure when St. David died. But tradition holds that he died on March the 1st, which is why today the Welsh observe St. David's Day on this day. As you heard earlier when I was speaking with the kids, St. David had some words on how to live our lives as followers of Christ in his final sermon before his death. His words were, "Be joyful and keep your faith, and do the little things that you have seen me do and heard about." I considered trying my hand at Welsh for that, but then I thought better of it. I'd like to delve a little deeper into the first part of St. David's words. Be joyful and keep your faith. St. David, you see, lived in turbulent times. The Romans had left Britain about 100 years before his time, and the local British princes ruled in their various kingdoms, now fighting, now allying with each other and the Anglo-Saxon invaders of the time. The threats today are different, but we also find ourselves living in turbulent and uncertain days. We are reminded that in changing times, God our Father can be trusted. We are not called to deny reality or embrace a false mask of faith, whistling in the dark, as it were. But we are called to rejoice in a faith that is rooted in trust of the Lord while remaining open-eyed to the world around us. Now, trusting God is not some magic wand that makes our troubles vanish. We can't magic away our difficulties, but we can live through them, moment by moment, patiently, and even joyfully. We are reminded not only to maintain our faith, but to be joyful in doing so. In the book of John, chapter 16, verse 33, Jesus tells his disciples, "In this world you will have trouble, but take heart, for I have overcome the world." As his own crucifixion neared, Jesus reminded them that there will be difficult times ahead, but to keep faith. In the Apostle Paul's first letter to the Thessalonians, he instructs the church to rejoice always, pray continually, give thanks in all circumstances, for this is God's will for you in Jesus Christ. And when Paul writes to the Philippians, he commands them, "Rejoice in the Lord always. I say again, rejoice." The command was so important that it bore repeating for him. These verses in St. David's sermon are there to remind us that joy is a choice. It is a deliberate perspective that is rooted in trust in God. Trust that there is a purpose to the pain we see or experience in this world. Trust in God's love and an ultimate victory. The last time I had the privilege of speaking here, I spoke of perseverance and we must persevere in our joy and trust in God, especially when things are hard. Next, I'd like to take a closer look at the second part of St. David's message. It is the second part where he is most often quoted, and it is regarded as his core message. It is often abbreviated to the simple words, do the little things in life. Again, I am not going to test myself on Welsh on this one. I spoke about this message with the children earlier, and because it's a simple message, we sometimes make the mistake as adults of believing that it is a message for children. Similarly, we can sometimes feel as adults that simple things, small acts, are fine for small children, but as adults there is more expected of us. Much as how when doing chores at home, we may give children small tasks to complete, while leaving the larger, more complex ones for ourselves. This couldn't be further from the truth or the teachings that we embrace as Christians. Jesus teaches us in Luke chapter 16, whoever can be trusted with very little can also be trusted with much. He reminds us that those small things are reflective of larger things. In Matthew chapter 10, Jesus tells us, and if anyone gives even a cup of cold water to one of these little ones who is my disciple, truly I tell you, that person will certainly not lose their reward. Later in Matthew, he speaks about our final judgment and cautions us, truly as I say to you, as you did it to one of the least of my brethren, you did it to me. He cautions us to remember that there are no small people in the family of Christ. And everything we do in life, we do to him. This all but dismisses the idea that there even can be small things and small acts of kindness. Because in all you do, and to and for others, you are doing it to and for Christ himself. And could we really consider any such thing to be small? These verses highlight that God values faithfulness in daily, often unseen actions, rather than just large, visible achievements. St. David's final teaching for us to do the little things calls us to look beyond ego's pursuit of grand achievements. While we rightly honor the monumental sacrifice and resurrection of Jesus, we must not overlook the countless little moments in his life, conversations with the marginalized, care for the poor, and simple acts of love. To me, one of the signs of the truth in these messages of kindness to others is found in the way that God made us. God has given us the knowledge to explore the world he has made and to understand it through study, and we have learned much about kindness. The science of kindness has been very well researched. Kindness has been proven to increase oxytocin, which aids in lowering blood pressure, improving our overall heart health. Oxytocin also increases our self-esteem and optimism, which is extra helpful when we're feeling anxious or shy in a social situation. Studies have found that participants felt stronger and more energetic after helping others. Many also reported feeling calmer and less depressed, with increased feelings of self-worth. People who help others live longer. They have shown greater protection against heart disease, and people 55 and older who volunteer for 2 or more organizations have an impressive 44% lower likelihood of dying early. This is a stronger effect than exercising 4 times a week. I am not encouraging you to forego exercising. Like most medical antidepressants, kindness stimulates the production of serotonin, the
feel-good chemical heals your wounds, calms you down, and makes you happy. Acts of kindness can cause your brain to produce endorphins, which is your body's natural painkiller, and it reduces cortisol, your body's stress hormone. Here's the big kicker. Kindness is contagious. The positive effects of kindness are experienced in the brains and the bodies of everyone who witnesses the act, not just the ones performing or receiving the kindness. This improves their mood and makes them significantly more likely to pay it forward. God quite literally built us to be kind. He built us so that when we are kind, it leads to others being kind also. In the parable of the mustard seed, Jesus teaches us that small things can grow into large ones. Telling us in Matthew chapter 13, the mustard seed is the smallest of seeds, but when it has grown, it becomes larger than all the plants in the garden, so that the birds of the air come and make nests in its branches. When we feel that the small things we do can make little difference, a smile and a thank you to a retail worker or a restaurant server, making a cup of tea for an overworked mother, sending a card to someone who is lonely or under the weather, or when we feel our faith is too weak. Remember the mustard seed, and remember St. David's words that repeat the teaching of Jesus Christ. Remember to be joyful. Remember to keep your faith, and remember to do the little things.